So, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Notes and Quotes podcast. Or if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you in this community. And as a 22-year-old, anxious, constantly confused person, I'm always looking around to see if I can find anybody that I can relate to, especially for this podcast community. It's one of the reasons I started it. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to just kind of create a community that people can relate to and feel seen and connected and inspired and also informed on some important topics. But as you know, sometimes we just do topics about your 20s. So today, well, not today, today is the actual episode, but before this episode, I was kind of scrolling through Instagram and trying to find someone who inspired me. And I came across this singer who was talking on Instagram just about life in your 20s and the experience and that kind of thing. And then I checked out her music and it was so awesome. And I just had to reach out to her. And miraculously, she said yes to being on the podcast today. So now I'm sitting here with Lisa Jacobs. And Lisa, how are you doing? It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited. So just tell the audience a little bit about
Same.
you and about your EP, 20 something questions.
Yeah, so my name's Lisa Jacobs, as Naomi just mentioned. I'm an R&B soul singer, and I write about life, as like I'm sure many
Awesome.
people do. But
Yeah.
I take a lot of inspiration just like from everything that happens around me, and I'm 22 myself, so I'm like feel like also I'm in like the middle of like the 20
Yeah.
something like craziness, and yeah, so I just released an EP that's called 20 something questions about this topic, and it's basically just like a little mini album of um, different situations, I'd say, different like feelings that you might go through in your 20s, or I guess life in general as well. For me, I
Yeah.
just named it 20 something questions because I'm in my 20s, but I think it applies to any age group really. It's just like the craziness and like chaos, but also the beauty of like that messiness, I'd say.
Yeah. And I was listening to it
Mm.
earlier. I mean, I was listening to it a few weeks ago, but I was also listening to it before we hopped on. And first off, my
Mm.
two favorites are Espressos as We Go and Floating. Both of those, I think, are the
Oh.
ones that I love the most. Espressos as We Go kind of gives me like a almost like a Daniel Caesar kind of vibe at the beginning. Like it's very
Oh.
kind of like I don't know, really calming and relaxing. And then the lyrics are just really simple. And it's the shortest one on there, I think. Right. But it's
Yeah.
also, yeah, but it's just, I don't know, one that hit me the most. And then Floating was really interesting because it has like a lot more lyrics to it. And I actually like
Mm.
pulled a quote from that one that I wanted to ask you about. So one of the quotes I
Yeah.
think from it, from Floating, was take a drive, meet a friend, dance with guys I'll never see again, focus on myself, have some fun, experiment. Now I'm writing my shit down, so I'm controlling it. So what was like your thought process
Mm.
behind that kind of lyric? Because it feels very relatable.
Yeah, so I guess because in the first verse I say I'm sitting here in my room at my parents' house sleeping in, no one in my
Mm-hmm.
bed, waking up alone again. There's
Yeah.
too much on my mind, I'm not controlling it. So the first bit is like this just like feeling of like heartbreak, and you don't really know what to do. You're like kind of numb. And
Mm.
then the second verse is more like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do about it. So now
Mm.
I'll take a drive, I'll meet a friend, I'll go have a chat, I'll dance with guys I'll never see again, just for fun.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
doesn't want to dance?
Yeah.
And then now I'm writing my shit down, so I'm controlling it. It's more like now I'm like taking control of my emotions, and I'm really like trying
Mm.
to sort this out for myself. So it's
Mm.
I
I get
guess like kind of the how I would deal with heartbreak, like how I would deal with the situation.
mm. Do you think that like
Yeah.
heartbreak was one of the major things that you've been dealing with in like your 20s? Because I feel like that's also something when you're in your 20s, I think that's when you probably have the biggest heartbreaks of your life thus far. Because when you're a kid, you have maybe mini
Mm.
heartbreaks, but it's not like as probably soul shattering as
Yeah,
like the ones in your 20s can be. So is that something that kind of inspired your EP?
definitely. Like
Yeah.
the EPs were written in like this time frame from when I was still in a relationship,
Mm.
and then it like we break up, and then the heartbreak, and then
Okay.
the second part of the project that hasn't come out yet is more about like the afterwards, after the heartbreak, like what's going to happen after this. But for this EP, like the heartbreak is definitely like a big part of it. It like was a very hard time for me, and I really like wrote so much to like try and deal with it. Like I think I wrote Espressos as we go, like probably, when was that? It was at the end. It was like a couple weeks after we'd broken up, and in a way, it was like me just commemorating the relationship in a way. So it's like very nostalgic, and floating is like about just like this like drowning feeling of heartbreak where you're like you don't know what to do and you're suffocating. Whereas Wildflower is still like before you've broken up and you're like, oh, is this like, is the energy between us really good or is it not? Like, you know, that kind of confusion. And
Yeah.
then Loki, right, is like in a bit more like of a fun phase. It's like, okay, maybe I'll go see some other people, you know, this kind of vibe. So it's all like, I would say it's like different aspects of heartbreak. It's not all just sad, it's also fun, but it's like all the different kind of nuances.
Yeah. That's so interesting because you can
Mm.
actually feel that when you listen to it. Now that I'm like hearing that from you and I'm remembering like me listening to it, I can feel those different vibes because you're right. I think Espressos as We Go does feel very nostalgic and Loki is more like kind of upbeat but still soft at the same
Mm.
time. So that's really interesting how you kind of use music as an outlet for those really tough experiences, you know?
I mean, I write a lot. I've got my diary here, and I write
Cute.
everything into this baby. So I'm not necessarily always just writing songs. Sometimes I just like sit and I just get a thought and I have to get it out, and like
Mm-hmm.
that's a very big like way for me of dealing with things like that. But then often the things I've written in my diary turn into songs later or like take inspiration from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like honestly just dancing, forcing
Yeah.
yourself to kind of be happy because there's no point in just sitting around being sad. Like I remember I would wake up every morning and the first thought you get, you're like, you've got this second of peace, and then it's like, oh, you remember everything that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got up, I did my makeup, and I put on music, and I danced, and I made my coffee, and I just kind of forced myself into like this feeling of like kind of feeling good.
Yeah.
So that was like music, not me writing it, but me experiencing it, I'd say also.
That's, yeah. No, I totally
Yeah.
relate to that because I feel like when you have really intense
Mm.
emotions, especially with something like a heartbreak or just, life in general and all of the stresses of life, it's very helpful to kind of just do something to release it, whether it's like journaling, whether it's writing music, or whether it's
Uh,
just literally physically dancing or just kind of doing some physical movement to get everything out.
yeah.
It's a very cathartic experience. And I don't know how to explain it, but I
Mm.
think it's something that everyone can relate to. It doesn't necessarily fix all your problems, but
Mm.
it kind of
No,
just releases everything, you know?
for sure. Like it can even just be like getting some fresh air, going for like a
Yeah.
5 minute walk, or
Yeah.
just like I don't know, it can be anything and it won't solve your problems, but it's just like these tiny little steps that you're doing.
Yeah.
And then, like, maybe in like a year, you'll feel better.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the
Yeah.
small steps that add up. It's just like all these things compounding to help you out because I think it's something that you learn to do at this age. When you're younger, kind of your parents are more so taking care of you and, helping you through things. But when you're older and you're now like in kind of baby adulthood, you are now
Yeah.
taking control of yourself and taking care of yourself, and you have to now take control of your own emotions. And it's really interesting to see how other people do that. And I think it's fun to, and really helpful to just learn from other people in their 20s to see what are the ways that you kind of deal with all of your, crappy emotions and stuff and all of your stresses, because we're kind of now just learning to deal with it all on our own.
Exactly. I agree so much. Like, for example, I think that I learned like the dancing to music things from my friend who I was living with at the time because I was like lying on the sofa and she'd like make me food and then she'd just like put on a song and she'd start dancing with me and she'd like lift up my arms and like we'd be dancing. So I think that you like kind of where you don't have your parents anymore, like as close in your life, maybe you don't live with them anymore, or like
Hmm.
something like that. Then I think friends are so important as well.
Yeah.
Like,
On the
yeah,
topic of friends, do you think it's hard to kind of meet friends in your 20s? Especially if maybe, like, when you're, let's say, 22 and onward, and you might not still be in school anymore. Maybe you're in university or something, but you might not necessarily still be in like secondary school or high school. And a lot of your friends might have moved away or moved on or something. And now you're in this uncharted territory. How do you go about like making connections
Yeah, I like it kind of depends. Like it's often easy to meet people and then it's more difficult to like
to
keep
keep
that
them?
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, because often you meet a lot of people and you're like kind of like you like each other and you have the same interests, but there's like a little something that like you don't like really click and they're really
Hmm.
lovely people, but it's maybe just like not a perfect fit. So I feel like it's definitely difficult to like really get to know someone because there's a lot of time and meeting up a lot of times that like has to go into that. So if you don't have like uni or school or something where you're just like you're kind of forced into like meeting people and then you know if you're lucky you'll meet someone who you like really get along with well, but if not it can definitely be very difficult. But I find like
Hmm.
just engaging like social activities, like whether that's like any kind of like sports or just like I don't know, going to your local cafe and like chatting up
Yeah.
someone.
Just getting out
I
there.
mean, it's all helpful, but it definitely is difficult, and like it can be stressful too. Like just going up to someone and being like, "Hi, I'm Lisa." you
Let's
know,
be friends.
I've had to do that a bit like this last semester, and it's like been humbling, but also it's a good challenge.
Yeah, I think it's fun to kind of challenge yourself too, just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Because for me, I tend to be
yeah,
really shy sometimes, and going and meeting
mm,
people or just like getting out there and not having friends come to you, but you go and get the friends yourself is so nerve-wracking. And it's
yeah,
just
for
a
sure.
really good challenge to just go and push yourself out of your boundaries and your comfort zone and see what's possible.
Hmm.
And on that, I
Yeah,
had a kind of question for you for your music. So,
yeah.
what got you into music? Because I always wonder how people get into music, especially people who start to do it on their own or then start rising out of nowhere sometimes. Like, how do people even get into music? How did you?
So, I mean, I've always kind of like written songs and sung a lot, like during my school time and everything. And then when I was finished with my A levels and I had to like start thinking about what I want to do, then
Hmm.
it was just like everything that wasn't music I kind of found uninteresting. Like my parents were like, "Oh, maybe you can try this," and then like
Hmm.
I applied I applied for like law school,
Oh,
which
wow.
is completely insane to me now. Um, but then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. The only thing I want to do is music. And then I moved to Norway because I'm
Hmm.
half Norwegian, and I
Hmm.
went to like this 1 year gap year school thing. It's like you like live at the school, and it's like just a year of like getting to know
Okay.
people and like doing things that like they're also interested in. So I like had my first couple like sessions, and like I was in the studio for the first time then, and then I stayed in Norway, and I was like, "Oof, I really want to do this thing." And so the next year I applied to uni, and then I started uni in Oslo as well for music. And after that, I just like the first year, I was just working with people and like kind of figuring things out, like testing out a few things and, writing more songs, being more in the studio. And then after that, I was like, okay, like now I'm just going to really go for it because I know that like this is the only thing I
This
want
is
to
what you
do.
want.
I'm going to make this
Yeah.
happen and I'm just going to put everything into it. So that's like when I like really decided. So I feel like it's always been my thing, but I like decided properly and I was like, I'm going to go for this at one point. And
Mm.
I think maybe that's like distinction. I don't know.
Mm. How old were you
Yeah.
when you kind of just decided, this is it? This is what I'm doing, and I'm going with this and nothing else?
Probably, I'd say it's like 2 years ago. So
Okay.
like 2019,
Mm.
20. Yeah, definitely like a year ago now is when I like started gigging. I started releasing my first song or like my singles. I released the first one in March this year, but like it was a year ago that all of that really started where I was like, okay, now I'm starting to do this. But the year
Hmm.
before that I was also just like working a lot in the studio and like making loads of different songs and like kind of finding out what I even want to put out into the world and all of that. So I'd say 2 years ago.
Wow, that's so
Mm.
cool. So, like, you just
Yeah.
literally took life by the reins and said, I'm just going to do what I want. And I really admire that because not
Yeah.
many people, I think, have the courage to do that because it's always just like expectations. Like you said, you applied for law school,
Mm.
and I'm assuming that kind of had to do with what you felt like you should do, maybe for
Yes,
parents, maybe for
definitely.
society, whatever. Right. And then it's kind of just fighting against that for your own well-being and your own happiness and stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think everyone has the courage to do that. So what do you think kind of made you, beyond like the, burning for music and stuff, what kind of made you feel like,
Mm.
you know what, screw it, I'm going to do what I want? Like what gave you that courage to kind of do that?
I think my mentality is just that, like, I've got one life.
Right.
Like, I've literally only got one life, and I'm not going to
True.
spend it doing something I don't want to do. And I just feel like it's going to work itself out. I'm going to put everything I can into it, and I just have this feeling that if I just keep going and if I put in all the hard work, then it's always going to work itself out. Like, I feel like I've just got trust that it will
Mm-hmm.
work out, and I will not let like financial boundaries of, like, the thoughts of like, oh, I should do like a corporate job so that like I've got
Yeah.
loads of money, and like all of that is not as important to me as really just going for what I want to do, because
No, I
otherwise I
love
feel
that
like I'd just be
mentality.
wasting my
Yeah.
dream or like
Yeah.
what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that mentality because
Mm.
you're absolutely right. I mean, you literally have one life. And why? Because I feel like what's going to
Yeah.
happen then if people just go and do what they think they should do, they'll spend like, I don't know, maybe 5, 10 years in a corporate job that they don't actually want. And then, you'll be
Mm.
in your 30s and you're like, oh, I really wish that I did music. I really
Yeah.
wish that I did this. And then you'll probably end up turning to it anyway. And if you had stuck with it, who knows where you could have been? Because it is scary to just decide that this is what you're going to do and go against the grain. But it's very helpful if you just kind of tell yourself you have one life. So why not do what
Yeah.
you want to do?
And
You know?
I have to ground myself in that a couple of times, because it's often like, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work, and then I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I even doing? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how I'm going to be able to do all of this. Like, Jesus Christ, it's so much work, and I completely underestimated it. And like, I freak out, like, obviously, and then I'm like, okay, but this is what you want to do. It's fine. Just keep fucking going.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. I literally do the same
hmm,
thing. I freak out all the time. I'm always freaking out every single day over something, probably
yeah,
something
I can imagine.
minuscule, or you
Making
just
your
have like,
podcast as well, like, that's so much work.
oh yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. And for me, I mean, I started it like 2, 3 months ago. On August 20th is when we launched. And
Wow.
yeah, so it's very much a baby. It's
Oh.
very much like now starting out.
Mm.
And literally, like
Ooh.
2 days ago, I think I was on the phone with my friend having basically an existential crisis like, oh my God, it's so much work and it's not growing as fast as I wanted to. And like, what if this is not, gonna work out? But then the same thing that you said just now, you have to like ground yourself and be like, you know what? This is what I want to
Yeah.
do. And I actually really enjoy doing this. And I just have this gut feeling that it's gonna work out if you just stick with it, you know?
Mhm.
So it goes back to
Yeah.
that same message of like consistency is key. And I think that translates to everything in your life, even if it's not you starting something on your own or being kind of, I guess, an entrepreneur of sorts. It's literally anything in
Yeah.
your life, especially at this age of being 20 something, and you're just kind of
Yeah.
floundering around. You just have to figure out kind of what you like and run with that.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's like so many things you can do, and I mean, it's just it's just so much. Like,
Hmm.
how are you expected to also, when you're finished with your A levels, what you were 18, you're like a child, and you're expected to know what you want to do already. Like, also, you should be allowed to like take your time to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think. Like, I, for example, I had 2 gap years until I started uni. So first the gap year where I just went to this school and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go here and I'll test this out. And then I found out I want to do more music. And then I did a whole year of just working. And then I
Hmm.
like practiced like my music theory and stuff like that to like get into uni. And then I was like, okay, I'm really going to do this now. And so it took me like a while to really decide that as well. So I feel like give yourself time, because it is
Yeah.
so much. And like, how are you supposed to decide that quickly when you're literally like a kid? Like, I still feel like a kid.
I think that's
I
the
am.
craziest thing. No, we're basically still kids, like we're baby
Yeah.
adults. And I think it's the craziest thing that people in before your A levels and when you're in your baby teens, you're expected to answer like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like what do you want to do for the rest of your life?" And I felt
Mm.
so bad when I was a kid because I never knew the answer. And all of the courses
Yeah.
and stuff that I took were like very all over the place. Like I was doing biology and sociology and law, and then I switched over to like
Wow.
international relations and politics, and then I switched back over into like creative stuff, and I was all over the place and nobody could like
Mm.
pin me down. Nobody was Everyone was like, "Well, what do you want to be?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. Sorry." And everyone else
Yeah.
is like, "Oh, I want to
Literally.
be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, or
Mm.
I want to do this and that." And I'm just like, "That's great. I'll figure it out." Still haven't figured it
Yeah.
out, but
Like that's
hey.
great for those people that know, but like for the rest of us, like it's hard. Like, bro.
Yeah. Like we don't know. We can't figure it
Yeah.
out. But honestly, I think that's
Yeah.
fine because it gives you a lot more freedom as well to just kind of
Yeah.
wait around. So if you I, it's a good thing to know what you want. Like if you're one of those kids that knows, hey, this is exactly what I want to be, then that's great. You can start
Mm.
working from it from young. Um, but
Mm.
then when you don't know what you want to be, you're kind of forced to try all these different things. And one, you get more experiences in your life, and it's kind of cool and fun. And then the other thing is you end up just naturally progressing to what was truly meant for you if you just kind of go on the path. Because my philosophy was to just continue doing whatever I liked at the time. So
Yeah.
when I was 15, I thought biology was interesting until I was maybe 16, 17. And I was like, you know what? I actually don't really like biology and I'm going to move on. And
Mm.
you know, it was a period of
Yeah.
time in my life, but you move on and you kind of do something
Mm.
else. And then you have more experiences to draw from, I think.
I think so too. I think also that you should try to not put that much pressure on yourself because
Hmm.
there are so many outer influences that are putting pressure on you, just like social norms and like, get your
Yeah.
shit together before 30 and like
Yeah.
you should be building your career, but you should also like find someone to be with and like maybe have kids before you're 30 and like so many
Hmm.
things. And I'm like, no, no,
And
no, no, no.
travel the world and do all these
Hold
different
on a
things.
second. You yourself have to be like, no, like I'm going to find my own path and like you should just allow yourself to really figure that out because again, you've only got one life.
Hmm.
Like when I really remember that I've only got one life, I'm like, why the fuck am I stressing? I'm here to
Yeah,
experience life. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to
literally.
grow. So whatever way you want to grow, whatever you want to experience, whatever you want to do that. But like let yourself have time because there's no point in stressing.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
literally, I feel like you hit the nail right on the head. Exactly. That is exactly correct.
I mean, that's hard too.
Yeah. It is hard. It absolutely is hard.
Mm.
It's so much easier said than done. Because it's like
Yeah.
you can say, "Oh, just do whatever you want, screw everyone, screw social norms, just do what you want to do and it's fine." And I'm like, "Okay, great." But I mean, societal
How?
pressure, family pressure, everything is just a lot. It's a lot to
Of
break
course.
through. It's a mental struggle, and you have to constantly remind yourself, like, okay, I'm gonna take the steps to doing what I want to do, but it's okay if that changes as
Yeah.
well, and it's okay if I don't know what I
Yeah.
want to do. Just keep going with life and just enjoy life in whatever way
Mm.
is best for you, basically.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
you had mentioned that I know with like music and creatives and stuff, you probably can't say all the stuff that's coming out and all that kind of thing. But what should we expect next from you with this new EP?
So next year at some point will be like the follow up
Okay.
of the first EP. So first EP is like heartbreak, chaos,
Hmm.
what is going on. Second part is like, you know what? I'm actually fine on my own. And then it's like kind of like the more into like the future and like more just a positive view on heartbreak as
Hmm.
well. And also embracing more the beauty of that messiness and like, taking that experience and being like, you know what? I'm actually really grateful that that happened because it wasn't meant to be and I learned so much and that's fine. It's kind of that mentality. But
Okay.
before that, there will also be a new single, which is a bit different to what I've done
Ooh.
before. It's a bit more clubby, girls'
Okay.
night out vibes. So that's going to be
Love.
coming in the beginning of next year. So everyone add it to your party playlist and we're going to like have a
Love.
little rant. It's the gossip behind all the
Ooh.
bullshit. It's that
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
Oh, I'm
Mm.
looking forward to it. I'm all excited now. Okay. So yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna
definitely,
be
guys,
good.
go check it out. Go check that out. Okay.
Mhm.
So, Lisa, that was awesome.
Mm.
You kind of did already, but do you have any last words for our audience?
Oof. I mean, okay, on the topic of 20 something questions, I'd say that
Hmm.
just like embrace whatever it is you're going through. If you're having a shitty phase, if you're having a great phase, just embrace it because everything is worth experiencing. Like the worst parts of my life so far have been the best in retrospect because I've learned
Hmm.
so much and I've grown so much. So I just say that, like, really, if you're having a shitty time, just like, that's fine. Journal, go for a walk, do whatever you have to do, but just know that like it's going to get better and you're going to be grateful for this at some point. And
Oh
also on another
gosh.
note, follow me on Instagram and Spotify and stream.
Absolutely. Go follow Lisa. Absolutely. I will tag all her stuff in the show notes. So you guys better go check her out, please. You will not regret listening to 20 something questions. Let me tell you. It's like, unfortunately, it's only 5 songs, but it
Mm,
is amazing. You'll
more will
just
be
have the
coming.
songs on repeat. Yeah, more is coming, so stay
Exactly.
tuned. And I think that those were some of the
Mm-hmm.
best last words I've ever heard on this podcast. So wonderful. Thank you so much. And
Great.
with
Lovely.
that,
Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you for coming on. And now is my
Yeah, no,
time
I'm
to
so
do
grateful.
my. I appreciate that. It's now my time to do my little annoying self plug. If you enjoyed the Notes and Quotes podcast, please make sure to check us out on all of the socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube, video exclusively on YouTube. And if you want more of me, you can check me out at Naomi A. Cambridge on Instagram. And if you want more of the Notes and Quotes podcast, we've got so far, I think, at this time that this has been released, probably like 20 episodes up on the page. But if you want more, we're posting every Tuesday. So yeah, see you guys next week. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Lisa, once again for coming on. It was a joy to talk to
Thank
you.
you.
Awesome. And we're out.